Good morning, everybody. Full house today, as I see. We are delighted to be here today. It's the third year that the Hellenic Impact Investing Network is presenting the Impact Investing Panel, and we are honored to be here. We're honored to be a content partner of the Delphi Economic Forum. I'm excited to be here also because after 2 years of online virtual conferences, at last we have a physical one. The feeling is different, the networking is different, the exchange is different. But I'm equally excited to have a fantastic panel with us today. Sustainability experts, global impact investors, and on top of that, we are discussing a very hot pressing issue, which is how the European Union can become energy independent. It's in the news currently, everybody's talking about it, but what we're going to explore with our panel today is how can we achieve this goal with climate tech impact investments. So I'm going to I would love to have some time at the end of our panel to answer maybe a couple of questions from the audience. So Spiro, if you have anything to ask, I would love you to do that. I'm going to let the fantastic panel that we have today here introduce themselves. I'm going to start with Antonis, global philanthropist, global impact investor, founder, Good Move Initiatives. Tell us a little bit about Good Move. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Antonis Schwartz. I'm Greek-German. I live in Munich. And I've been in the impact investing sector since 2015, investing in impact funds and impact startups, including climate tech startups. And I also work as an impact investing consultant at a consultancy called Fineo that does philanthropy and impact investing consulting. And yeah, with Kostis, I'm also trying to make the term impact investing more known in Greece. And yeah, it's a great pleasure to be here.
And I have to add here that Antonis is literally one of the very early impact investors of Greek origin, and in general, we have a small community that is growing very quickly. So I was extremely delighted when we first met some years back. We also have, welcome Antoni, we also have Rolf Nagel here from Germany. Rolf is a partner at Munich Venture Partners, a venture capitalist. You have done a lot of investments in the sustainability segment as well. Yeah. Welcome Rolf, tell us a little bit about Munich Venture Partners, introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure. Yes, similar to Antonis, I'm German-Greek. My name is Rolf Periklis, and after 1821, it's nice to be here again and follow what's going on in Greece. I'm the founder of Munich Venture Partners. We are a venture fund started in 2005. Before MVP, I was 11 years partner in an Israeli venture fund in Tel Aviv and Munich. And like Antonis, I'm headquartered based in Munich, and we are focusing pretty much on sustainability. We have also digital technologies, but which are kind of related to energy efficiency, and about $250 million under management. And our maybe most prominent companies are firms such as Sonnen Battery, which is a world leader in solar storage technologies, creating energy independence, not only for the big guys, but also for residential users. Let me say, similar to the revolution of the personal computer in the 80s. It's now the personal power plant in the 21st century. And other companies like Relay, Internet of Things, which we sold to Munich Re, and an e-mobility company, Kobi, which turns your bicycle into a kind of computerized digital information platform, which we sold to Bosch. Exciting. These are just a few examples.
Yeah, exciting deals, right? And we're going to go deeper in the very examples. We also have Fabian Krager from Zurich. Fabian, welcome. Suzy Partners, you have been out there for a while. I remember you in the neighborhood. Welcome. Very, very happy to have you here. Tell us a little bit about Suzy Partners, a little bit about yourself.
Yes, it's a pleasure. My name is Fabian Karger. I'm a director in the investment team of Suzy Partners. Suzy Partners is an asset manager that is exclusively focused on investments in the space of sustainable infrastructure, whereas we pretty much cover the entire spectrum across the value chain of the energy transition. We are currently overlooking approximately 1.8 billion euros in funds. Our investors are mainly institutional investors, such as pension funds and insurance companies. Myself, I do cover a couple of regions across Europe and globally, from the origination, structuring, execution side of our investments. We are located in Zurich, but we also have offices in Luxembourg and also a dedicated team in Singapore covering the Asian market. And we also successfully completed our first investment in Greece only recently, and hopefully there are many more to come.
And are you planning to open an office in Athens as well, Fabian?
Maybe not today and tomorrow, but let's see.
So we're going to probably see a little bit more of you here around,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And
sure.
We also have Mr. Δημήτριος Δημόπουλος. Welcome, Dimitri, head of ESG at Piraeus Holdings for quite some years, I would say. Tell us a little bit about Piraeus. Most of us know, of course, but it would be good to see what you're doing in sustainability. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Welcome.
Thank you, Kostis. Good morning to everyone. My name is Δημήτριος Dimopoulos, and I'm the head of the ESG unit within the bank. I've been working with the bank for the last 15 years. Our unit is part of the corporate development and ESG, which falls under the planning and IR, and we have a direct, let's say, reporting line to the CEO's office and the chairman's office. Piraeus Bank is the largest bank in terms of deposits and loans in Greece. It's a leader in sustainability, has been for a while. It was the first bank that came out back in 2007 with the first loan in photovoltaics, in solar panels, which at that time was something very, very new for the market. We have the largest portfolio in renewable energy, and we aspire to be the first bank in Greece, one of the very few banks globally that will be setting targets to become net zero by 2050. We'll be setting in the coming months our targets for 2030, and most of that has been announced yesterday in London by our CEO, who's a great supporter of what we're doing and inspires the work that we're doing. And during the presentation of the 2022-2025 business plan of the bank.
Thank you so much, Dimitri. And I would add here, you had a substantially successful green bond issue. I don't think that anybody would have expected to go to 500 million. So congratulations for that. We still need to see.
That is true. Thank you.
We still need to see, and it would be interesting. Maybe you can address that as well, because it connects to our panel, where this money is going to flow in. What kind of projects? Is it going to be just renewable energy infrastructure, or are we going to go beyond that? So why our discussion today is very important is because everybody's talking about it. We have a conflict in Europe. We have rising energy prices, and we understood at last, maybe a little bit late, the European Union, not our impact investment community, that has been saying about that almost 15 years, but we realized that we need energy independence. There are a lot of discussions on how that's going to happen. Antoni, they say that some people say it's going to be massive renewable energy infrastructure installations, right, all over Europe. I'm not so sure if there's going to be also a reactivation of coal plants, as I said before. Do you think this is a threat on the short term or on the mid-term, that we're going to go to traditional energy sources? If we go the renewable energy infrastructure route, what does that mean? And also, what does that mean in terms of the communities? We had some resistance in the past. If we're going to go massive right now, there might be more. And are there solutions to that?
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, so before I answer your question, I just wanted to make a quick, brief statement about the policy failure that we had the last 10, 20 years in terms of the renewable energy policy. And we should have approached the topic like a war topic back then, and now we have an actual war. So at least finally we have like the urgency that is needed, but it comes a bit late. And of course we need large-scale renewable energy projects. We should also think about maybe tapping into the Sahara Desert for that. In Morocco there's I think the biggest solar energy plant in the world, and we can build more there for sure. But in terms of renewable energy projects in Europe, it oftentimes clashes with local populations, you know, who feel that their landscapes are being destroyed and they're not being heard in the consultation process. So I think it's very important that there is a very good consultation process, a very good environmental audit of the project, that the local communities can invest in these renewable energy projects, and therefore really have a strong buy-in, and also that we promote local energy, like energy communities. In Germany we have a lot of energy communities. Actually in Greece it's starting as well, but we need to see more. I'm actually involved in starting an energy community on a Greek island in Samos.
Yeah.
And and lastly, what you said, unfortunately we are currently seeing the trend that we need to fire up the coal plants again that we thought we wanted to close, to cover the gap, because we can't burn the gas from Russia anymore. So that is certainly happening right now in Germany and Greece and other places as well.
I agree with what you're saying, and I think that it is a little bit, I think we do have a threat to go fossil fuels because the pressure is very high. And what you said, that 10 years ago, all these announcements about the transition to renewable energy infrastructure, I agree with you, big announcements, we could have done more, right? I was reading that for example, the energy, the solar and wind contribution to the energy mix in Greece is 30%, while in Germany is 50%. So how is it possible that a country with wind and sun has such a low percentage in its energy mix? And of course that happens to other countries as well. And Germany probably is a little bit more advanced because they have also pushed the technology manufacturer. So they were technology producers as well. But in terms of the energy communities in Germany that you mentioned, how does this really works? We're involving them in the shareholder structure of whatever PV installation, or are they benefiting from the cheaper energy? Let's say if we take a local community, let's take an island, and we have a private investor coming in, probably with some support from the state. What do we do with locals there? Do we include them in the shareholder structure? What could you do in Samos, for example? What are your first thoughts?
Well, I mean, an energy community is owned by citizens and businesses.
Exclusively?
Yes. And it's a democratic form of basically democratizing energy. So in Germany, actually, a lot of the energy communities have been started by farmers that got together and said, okay, we have these big barns and let's put solar panels on them, or we have space, let's put a wind park there. So yeah, it's citizens getting together and planning renewable energy projects. I quickly wanted to say two things about climate tech as well. One is that we've seen like a boom in investing in this space in terms of tech startups, but also in renewable energy projects. And I think Rolf can speak a bit about the venture aspect of it. So this is really great, like really great founders, and the whole space is booming. So that really gives me a lot of hope. And also institutional investors like insurance companies, pension funds, they are getting more and more sophisticated when it comes to ESG and impact. They cannot afford to have a carbon-heavy portfolio anymore. You know, they need to show that they take ESG seriously. They push their managers. They need to buy the green bonds and the green stocks. And so I think we're seeing like a very positive shift for corporates to behave ethically. Yeah,
I agree. So the timing factor probably is going to be a little bit of a challenge. I know, and I think we knew 10 years ago, we knew 20 years ago, at least the people on this panel, that we're going to go that direction. The question is if we're going to make it in time. Rolf, I'm going to give you a couple of numbers. Last year we had 25 gigawatt installations of PV all over Europe. That brings the total capacity to 250 or 200 gigawatts. On top of that, another 200 gigawatts of wind installations. In order to replace the 600 billion of gas that we're importing, we would probably need to reach 1,000 gigawatts in only 8 years by 2030. This is, again, as we discussed with Antonis, a massive number of investments, first of all, but also the execution time that this needs to that this needs actually to become a reality. So my question to you is, beyond the renewable energy infrastructure route, can we do something with climate technologies? Is there anything out there currently that we can scale up and can provide a clean solution to energy locally that we don't have to import from any third-party countries? Or do we need to speed up current programs so that we develop new technologies? You have done a lot in the tech sector, and I would like you also to talk a little bit about more about the Sonnen example that you mentioned before. But tell me first, is there any tendency, any trend with new technologies?
Yeah, very good questions. I think when you take the entire demand for energy, you should also look at the small guy in the street. For instance, let's take the case of Sonnen battery. Of course, it's a very small energy rate in terms of kilowatt hours. But if you scale it up to the millions of households, then you will create also massive capacity on a B2C space, because there's the advantage that the generation and the usage is in the same in the same locality, in the same spot. So there, it's the same with Tesla cars. Of course, one car is a very small number, but if you have mass production in the millions, prices go down dramatically, and you see it now in the case of Sonnen and all the other competitors, which create a new market in the distributed energy side. So it's not only about big infrastructure projects where you have entire fields, but small is beautiful, so to say.
Absolutely, and I think that the Sonnen example is exceptionally interesting. We lost the deal 5 years ago to Shell Ventures. They took the whole round. It was a fantastic investment, but Munich venture partners were able to get in. I think
at a very early stage,
at a very early stage, correct, and then they acquired the whole company, if I remember. So the Sonnen example is interesting because we have the individual households, as you said, producing energy with solar rooftops, and at the same time also storing energy in the household. But they also had another strategy which is of interest and might be a future solution, connecting.
So we have created with the software, also from another company of us, a so-called Sonnen community, where we, by that, created a so-called virtual power plant, and through that you enable also end users to become their own power provider. For instance, now I'm in Greece, I don't need so much electricity at home. I can sell my excess capacity to the community.
So in principle, that also is a creation of energy community.
Yes.
Indirectly,
and,
right?
Like Antonis said before, there are many modes of possibilities to create these independent, autonomous, and also what I like very much from a social point of view, ESG, democratic way to empower the people.
Absolutely.
Not only the big utilities, which are also still needed, don't take me wrong.
Absolutely. And of course, if we're talking about energy independence, right, I think decentralizing energy production is also an aspect. Because this was exactly the problem that we had in the past. And so what many people do not understand in principle is that they say, like, you know, coal is cheap,
Yeah,
probably not anymore with the sanctions from the European Union that are probably they're going to take them back again. But or nuclear energy, like France, is cheap. But nobody is calculating, is including in the electricity production cost the transport of electricity. While where we have with solar PV and wind, we have decentralized production of energy, and probably the cost is even lower than it is today. And I'm going to move to Fabian because please go ahead. Yes, please.
And that's also my passion for Greece. Greece has, after Indonesia, most islands in the world, let me say, and there you can create much more energy independence with all these new technologies, not to ship around gasoline by ferries, which is really crazy, sorry to say.
Absolutely.
And Greece could be a role model for the world, for many island nations. To maybe what Antonis is doing at Samos, right? Could be a role model for many island nations in the world. So
this is the other part of the equation, is what do we reduce? So the one part that we have just discussed, how can we increase production from clean energy sources, but what can we reduce on the other side of the equation, and what can we store, and what can we save? I move to Fabian, and Fabian, I would they say some of the people that are working with these goals and these plans on the European Union level, they say like, no, we have to go energy storage. We have to find energy efficiency solutions because we're already producing a lot of renewable energy. A big part of that gets wasted. So would that be the solution to get to energy independence?
Well, yes and no at the same time. At the end of the day, the production is, of course, a very fundamental aspect of the equation to start from, right? However, it would be naive to believe that just by generating green power, you would actually be able to resolve that, this issue. So, if you look, for example, at the Paris Agreement and the targets that have been set back then, in order to achieve those targets, approximately 50% of all measures must come from energy efficiency, not renewable energy generation, right? And this is something that is widely overlooked by the broader community, because once again, I want to echo on this phrase because it's very important. The cheapest and cleanest kilowatt hour you can have is the one not being consumed.
I like this one.
That's very simple.
Yeah.
And this is something we have to keep in mind. However, it is absolutely true that energy storage plays a very important role as well. And for example, we in SUSE Partners, we have identified that need and also the potential very early on in the days. We have set up a dedicated energy storage fund to invest in large-scale storage projects. So the thing is that it was and still is kind of difficult to find suitable projects of that magnitude that, number one, have the right underlying business model, that are de-risked in a way that you're not going full merchant, because this is something that back in the days and still today is a bit difficult to digest for institutional investors, which is the main source of capital from the private sector needed in order to make these projects happen.
Because the numbers are large, the investment tickets are large?
Yes, indeed.
As we're talking about infrastructure in principle,
yes.
But are the technologies there for storage to go to a massive scale? Fabian?
Well, look, there are different ways of having storage solutions. There's lithium-ion batteries for sure. There are other forms of battery technology. There are more, let's say, exotic things like flywheels, that we've seen in the past. And from a technological perspective, I, rather defer to the engineers to comment what is best. At the end of the day, for us as an investor, it is very much also about the underlying business model. Like, how is the offtake being structured? Is this like a merchant risk? Do we actually sell the power stored in the facility to the grid at merchant prices? Is there a sort of a PPA in place? So what is the underlying business model? And this is also something very important in the overall conversation beyond just basically the technological aspect about the innovation and the engineering part, so to say.
Energy efficiency?
Big topic, as I mentioned. So within SUSE Partners, we have deployed approximately 500 million euros across energy efficiency projects in, I think, right now 15 different countries. In Europe over the last couple of years. And this is only the beginning, for sure. We are usually quite technology agnostic because most of the technologies are there and they are well proven, which is why I really do adore and acknowledge the innovation part of the conversation today as well. But in many cases, many of those technologies are already there, like LED technology, for example. If you replace a conventional street light with a LED light, you can instantly save up to 85% of your energy bill.
Of your energy?
Watt hour. The energy bill, like the costs of the power, which is not only due to the power, but also due to less maintenance costs and all of that. So in many cases, it just makes a lot of sense to do these things. But in many of the cases that we see in reality, there's still a lack of the right legislation in place, sometimes a lack of understanding, also the lack of the right partners to actually execute the projects on the ground.
Do we need legislation to allow such technologies to be used, or do we need legislation to push for these technologies to be used? I don't know if you understand the difference. So do we need to penalize the use of all technologies and therefore push the market to replacement? The LED example, I think it's the best.
Yeah.
How do you think we should address that on the regulation side?
Well, we think both. At the end of the day, legislation is always important to create a good playing field for the private sector to then basically take care of the issue. However, clearly, the capital and also the solutions, they must come from the private sector because it's a commercial proposal at the end of the day. If you can save 85% of your energy bill, that's a commercial proposal in the first place. So there's not so much, let's say, push from the regular side needed, to the extent that businesses, energy service companies, for example, will find a good way to actually roll out those projects in the markets. And this is basically where we are looking at.
Please, Rolf. Yes, please go ahead.
One solution could be also creating better CO2 certificates with a CO2 mechanism. You have the ideal solution to implement strong incentives, not to waste energy too much. I'm like Fabian, a big believer in the best energy is which you don't need.
But also to really echo on what Antonis and Rolf said already, like for example, the entire decentralization of energy production and consumption also in many ways makes a lot of sense. Just to give you one tiny little example, if you take Germany as one case, if you look at net metering solar projects, for example, and you would be able to consume where you produce the power, you will probably be able to lower your energy bill by approximately 70%, only because you're avoiding the grid costs and the renewable energy levies we have in Germany. That's basically 70% of the power price, of the retail power price today. So again, there's a commercial ratio behind to do these things, and this is something we are trying to convey also in the market.
And I would also like to hear your take on green hydrogen, Fabian. They say that's the third probably route that can give us energy independence. Do you believe in that? Do we believe on the impact side of that? So does it really make sense if we take the impact metrics and say, okay, let's go the green hydrogen route compared to the solar infrastructure? It's better or worse, or it's an add-on? What do you think?
Well, we've been looking into hydrogen for a while. We even published a white paper on hydrogen investments, I think 2 years ago. So we've been following the market very closely, and it's definitely very interesting. I think the major challenge at the moment is that even looking at, for example, electric vehicles and EV charging infrastructure, again, it's still a bit difficult to find the right, business cases for institutional investors like us. And hydrogen is probably even more early stage in that respect. So it makes sense from many different perspectives, but for institutional capital at the moment, it's still a little bit premature in terms of making those things bankable, for lack of a better word, in terms of de-risking the projects to the extent that you can actually match it with capital from pension funds, for example, or insurance companies. Mm-hmm. So from a technology side, it is quite interesting. From the underlying business model side, we probably will have to see how this unfolds. I think first it's EV charging to actually make the case, and probably hydrogen will follow.
Is it what I said at the beginning, that sometimes the European Union, and of course in their effort to inspire the market, they come with some big words? Green hydrogen was one of them, and I'm challenging the development of that as well, definitely in the next 8 years, because we always have that time factor that is very relevant. Yeah. And I'm going to move to Dimitris. Dimitri, I would love you to take also a position on the energy plan right now from the European Union, REPowerEU. How does that contradict, maybe if it does, with the Green Deal that we have been hearing for the last 5 years, a very ambitious plan? And you can also comment what our colleagues said here to have your opinion too. But I would also like you to, the European Union says that if we're going to reach the goals, that's going to depend on how individual governments and national plans are going to evolve over the next couple of years. And you have been, probably you are one of the few people in Greece that has such an in-depth knowledge of sustainability matters. We would love to hear from you how Greece is going to evolve in this matter. We are a little bit more dependent than, for example, France is from external energy sources. What do you think it should be done? If you feel that there are going to be support programs again to push renewables going forward, please go ahead.
Well, thank you, Kostis. Well, can I echo on what my Fabian said before on the cleanest energy unit? I would go one step forward and even say that, dare to say that the cleanest energy unit is the one that is not produced in the first place. So that means that, putting a lot of emphasis on energy saving, which I absolutely agree, is going to be part of the equation. And I was reading a report recently that in the EU, we can reach the 2050 net zero targets and the 2030 emissions reduction by 55% if we invest in renewables and in energy saving. I mean, Europe has about 75% of its buildings that are very low in energy capacity, in energy saving. And there's a big program now, and it's all part of the Green Deal, to renovate at least 35 million buildings in the next years. And that is something that is happening in Greece too. So renovating, insulating your houses, homes to start with, and also industrial facilities is very, very, very important. In fact, it's the first thing you do. First you insulate your home, then you look into what kind of energy you would need for heating and for cooling. And I think that's in Greece. We also have a very ambitious plan. We have the National Strategy for Energy, and we are expecting now the new climate law, and according to the climate law, we will be aiming at, by 2030 to be fully decarbonized from energy. After 2030, all new vehicles in Greece will have to be net zero. That means that there's going to be a lot of need for investing and in all these new technologies, but also in providing incentives to private individuals and companies and corporates and investors so that they can help. Why am I saying that? Because 95% of financing to corporate businesses in Europe comes from banks. And this is the role of the banks. That's answering one aspect of your questions. Where are we going to find the money? Money is going to come from, of course, the European Union. We have a very strong, let's say, a Green Deal. There will be 2 trillion euros to be invested, most of it to be invested in green energy, in digital economy over the next decade. This is part of the Next Generation EU program, and also the multi-annual budget, the 2021-27 budget of the EU. The EU needs at least 28 trillion euros to reach net zero by 2050. That's a lot of money. And of course, as previous speakers said, that's not going to be easy to be covered only by governments or by national governments or by the EU. Definitely there will be a need for private investors capital, and for banks. And what can governments do? What can the EU do? Help them. Help them in making investments easier. And that is something that we need in Greece, and that's probably one of the headwinds in Greece, or one of the obstacles that we have. Legislation needs to be made simple. It needs to expedite all the procedures that are needed for licensing. I think we're also waiting now for a new legislation that will clarify issues on offshore wind. We have all those islands. We have 3,000 hours of sunshine. That's 250 days a year sunshine.
Much more than in Germany.
Oh, well, a little bit more than Germany, okay. and the other thing that we have to keep in mind is that Greece is very strategically positioned globally. We're on the crossroad between east and west, south and north. So all that energy that was mentioned before.
If I maybe jump in, this could be quite interesting for the production of green hydrogen. You know, the Arabs have to transport their hydrogen somehow. And Greek, because that's also the topic of this call, of this talk, how to get Greece on the global radar screen, and there with the shipping industry, Greek
can help very much. I
can make a big difference. You know, from what you mentioned before in Africa, or you, big solar plants in Africa get the electricity over to Europe. The shipping industry get the green hydrogen to Europe through the Greek shipping genius, let me say. And then maybe there's a third one. We need also to eat every day, and the food has to come somewhere. And agriculture is also a big emitter of N2O, it's called, chemically speaking. And we have a technology in our portfolio which converts bad soil into a very good soil, and we do it with the modification of lignite. So instead of burning brown coal lignite, you transform it into a permanent soil humus concentrate, and with that you can grow wheat fields also in Egypt.
And probably that's one of the technologies that can help us mitigate emissions. Absolutely. Still doesn't solve the energy independence problem or the energy production problem. Of course, they have to go in parallel. But Dimitri, you were saying exactly that. In which areas can we then focus to increase clean energy or reduce energy usage in Greece?
I think, well, and this is what we are following in Piraeus Bank, and this is our policy, if I could say so, our strategy. And coming back to your question regarding the green bond that we issued recently, it will focus mainly on renewable energy, energy saving. And these are the two, let's say, most important components of dealing with the energy issue: saving and renewable energy, and storage. That's the other issue. That is very, very important. You know, you have the sunshine, but when the sunshine's not there, what happens to the energy? that you need when it's not shining, when it's raining. So that is something that we base our strategic, let's say, priority. And that's where we want to focus our funding, because we believe in this, if I could say so, this motto: renewable energy, saving energy, storage, new technologies like hydrogen. I really believe that hydrogen is going to be very big. And I think it's going to be...
we're always talking about green hydrogen, right?
I'm always talking about green hydrogen, right? Because at the moment we do have brown hydrogen, but we want a green hydrogen. And even in Greece, there's a project now, the White Dragon, you've probably heard of it. It is a project where big energy companies and construction companies are actually working on a project to produce green hydrogen in Greece and see how that can be used in the energy mix, especially when you can use it for heating, like, you know, mix it with natural gas or whatever. So that is something, we're going to be seeing a lot of that coming up. So that is if we follow this pathway, then we can really aspire to a 1.5 degrees world. Now, if we go and add to that biodiversity, which is another very important thing, it touches upon agriculture, it touches upon, you know, our daily lives, and if you wrap all that equation with financial inclusion, leaving no one behind, it's very, very important that when we're talking about all these energy efficiency and energy projects, that socially we keep people on board. We don't want to see anything just moving ahead in terms of, you know, economics and all the rest, without taking into consideration the social aspect. Is very, very important, and you need that right now. So all that together, the energy, biodiversity, and the social aspect, that's when you have a better planet.
I fully agree, and this is in the very core definition of impact investing. And how we call it in Greek is επενδύσεις περιβαλλοντικού και κοινωνικού αποτυπώματος. So the social aspect is in there per definition, as you said. Thank you for mentioning that. I'm a little bit concerned if this all can happen. I don't challenge the intention, but for Greece specifically, as we international investors look at it, we have a very early venture capital market. It's not mature at all. There are practically a couple of deals that are becoming very popular, very quickly acquired right away from international players, but we don't have a venture capital community. And we also don't have all the layers of capital that are necessary to develop these technologies for the future and advance. We're talking about new economy here. We don't have philanthropic capital that can incubate new technologies. We don't have business angel investments. There's no culture for that here. We don't have institutional money that understands what impact investing is and understands what sustainability is. There are bright exceptions with the green bond of Piraeus, absolutely. And behind the green bond are a lot of people that are also driven by the potential returns. But if we compare that to Switzerland market, Germany market, France, even Italy is moving very quickly towards impact investing. I think that we don't have the ecosystem yet. This is one of the main challenges of the Hellenic Impact Investing Network. We want to create the ecosystem. One solution here. Sorry, please.
Interrupt, maybe because of time. Maybe you need a kind of MIT for Greece. The NTUA, I think the rector is also here. He should push for a kind of MIT for Greece, where you get the ecosystem up and running. Because look at Israel, not so far from you.
Absolutely.
Greece could be a wonderful startup nation. You have the diaspora of, like, the Israelis, the Jews going back to Israel. You know, zillions of Greeks, super talents, should go back maybe to Greece. It's a nice life here. You have a lot of sun, and you can start great
I agree that
startups.
The conditions are getting there. We have a very good administration that at least understands what needs to be done, and they are listening to us, experts, and say, like, okay, let's replicate the models that you guys have done 15 years ago in Europe or in the US. The capital, I think this is another challenge. How do we say that Greece is an impact investing hub, can become an impact investing hub, therefore to attract the impact investing community to come here to invest in such technologies. But there are still difficulties, and Fabian, you have done the LED deal, Israeli technologies, commercialization in Greece. How difficult was it? And then I want to hear Antonis's option. I'm sure that he's going to struggle with the energy community idea in Samos as well. It's not. It's difficult still. It's difficult still.
Yeah. And this is just, you know, as a quick remark here. You know, I do acknowledge and appreciate the push for innovation on the technology side. I fully support that concept that there must be done more. However, part of the context of today's discussion is how can we get independent, more energy independent. And that's the reason why it's a little bit odd, because there's immediate action required. There is no time to lose.
There's no time.
There's no time.
That's exactly
it is an imminent threat
the
that
problem
we are facing at the moment. So we have to make use of technologies that are there, that are kind of commoditized in a way, that just need to be rolled out. Because the numbers we need to actually fill here are you know, huge. And that is the reason why, you know, both needs to happen. Like, the innovation part is very important for the mid and long run. But at the moment, right now, we need to make use of what we already have. And that is basically the bad news also in terms of energy savings, for example, energy efficiency. Because, as I said, we have invested approximately 500 million euros in such measures. The underlying projects and contracts are, I think, approximately 3,000 different projects. So energy efficiency, energy savings is highly fragmented. It's highly fragmented. We'll have a hard time to find projects with a, you know, project volume that is larger than maybe 3 or 4 million euros. And that is very difficult to be covered by some, you know, banks and other forms of investors. Even for institutionals like us, it's a challenge, because we need to deploy a lot of capital into projects. If you have to aggregate portfolios where the individual measure has a volume of approximately 2 or 3 million euros, that's quite a challenge. So this is really, like, you know, something we have to focus on. Having said that, I guess that the LED case you were mentioning, with the transfer of technology from Israel, this is, I think, not really the challenge we have experienced, to the extent that basically the technology that is being used is well proven. Then it's basically like fit for purpose for the energy service companies that use those technologies, as well for us as the institutional investor in the project.
Thank you for that. And I will add here, another angle would probably be the concept of tech transfer that we're developing here with a colleague of mine. We have technologies abroad. Yes. Greece might be a step behind. So how can we commercialize, deploy these technologies in Greece to get to the goal that we have? So this, nobody has talked about agri-PV. Actually, there is one exception of a technology in Greece that we're currently doing due diligence on, agricultural PV, photovoltaics, the possibility of being able to provide to farmers in Greece the option to continue to cultivate their crops while at the same time producing renewable energy. So those are the solutions that we want, and how can we scale them up quickly? If we invest in that deal and bring it from 5 million to 10 million, that's, for us, it's fantastic, it's amazing. But what we actually need to do is bring this company to 100 million revenues. Then we're going to see the scale. And in order to do that, we need to collaborate with local investors. We need corporate investors. We need debt financing. We need collaboration. We need probably a small change in regulation from the state. Samos, Andoni, how difficult is to put that energy community? And it's not only that. Andonis has tried in the last 5-6 years to push the creation of impact ventures in Greece. And I think that some went well. You had a lot of resistance. It was difficult to convince the people. Probably it was difficult to make the people understand what that is. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that, and maybe we can close with this.
So basically right now there is no active energy community on Greek islands except Crete. By active I mean that actually have installed capacity. So this is a huge deficit, and Samos, together with citizens, the municipality and others, I'm trying to set up this energy community, and one of the big problems is that we don't even know if they will let us connect to the grid. Apparently there were people that tried before to sell energy, and they were denied the respective license by RAE. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do a net metering project where we're going to use the energy ourselves, so we're not selling it into the grid. And again, this is we're a bit scared because we're going to create this energy community as a legal entity, and then we're going to try and create this first project. But we don't know for 100%. We don't know 100% certainty that we will be allowed to connect to the grid. And I think this is a big problem in Greece, that there is very large uncertainty around energy communities. How do they work, and do they actually are they actually allowed to connect with the grid?
Thank you for that, and we are still brainstorming on what can we do on the island of Samos to make it an impact hub or to make it greener. So please subscribe to our Hellenic Impact Investing Network newsletter. Some news might come there. We also want your ideas. I don't know if we have any questions from the audience. I'm just screening here. Going, anybody, Spiro?
Sure, I have a question for Mr.
Please.
You've been around for 15 years. How have you seen your own organization change? I'm all right.
30 seconds, Dimitri.
I've seen dramatic change since the last, like 15 years when we first started introducing the discussion of climate change and climate risk, and we had to do things about that. It was something that the bank at that time did not really look at it as an area of focus and priority. Nowadays, we have our CEO, we have the chairman of the board. They're actually pushing us further into exploiting this, the opportunities and the possibilities that arise from climate change or from biodiversity. Huge difference in the last even 2 years, I would say.
Thank you for that. We're going to close with this. We are all available for everybody after the break for questions. My colleagues from the Hellenic Impact Investing Network are also here, happy to tell you exactly what we're doing, how we're doing that. Thank you all. Thanks to our wonderful panel. Thank you for being here.